Nia's beautiful curls began sliding into her hands, just as the champagne glasses rose. One by one, thick clumps fell onto the cool marble floor, in front of every executive she had ever worked for. The ballroom went deathly silent. At the back of the room, her husband Andre stood smiling. He had secretly swapped her shampoo for hair removal cream, desperate to watch his brilliant wife break on the biggest night of her career. His mother raised a glass in victory, and the woman wearing Nia's perfume laughed out loud. No one moved to help. No one stepped forward to cover her. The entire room watched a black woman's dignity being tested in public and chose silence. Then Nia slowly lifted her face and smiled. It wasn't the trembling smile of a victim. It was the calm, terrifying smile of a woman who had inherited $70 billion 3 hours earlier. At that moment, the air in the room shifted. Nia wasn't just the new chief strategy officer anymore. She was the new owner of the entire building. And for the first time that night, Andre stopped smiling. Hello, friends. Welcome to Black Bite Stories. Before we begin today's story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love hearing from our global family. Andre stayed near the back, beside his mother Della and the woman wearing Nia's perfume, Camille. He looked sharp in his tailored tuxedo and cheap in the eyes. Della's lips curled around a knowing smile. Camille hid a laugh behind her glass, already tasting the story she planned to tell later. The gala was supposed to crown Nia as the new chief strategy officer of Vale Ridge Holdings, a billion-dollar logistics empire that loved saying words like innovation and inclusion while making black women earn every inch twice. Nia had worked there for 12 years. She had written rescue plans men took credit for. She had solved crises that later came back as someone else's brilliance. Tonight was supposed to be the night the room finally said her name correctly, all the way to the top. Instead, her scalp burned. Not sharply. Worse than that, softly, treacherously. The kind of burn that tells you betrayal happened in your own bathroom, with your own bottle, by hands that knew exactly how long you needed to leave shampoo in before getting dressed. Nia touched her hair again and came away with another clump. A murmur rolled through the ballroom. Somebody whispered, "Oh my God." Somebody else took half a step backward like humiliation could spread by contact. Andre took a sip of bourbon and looked pleased with himself, the way small men do when they confuse cruelty with control. And Nia lifted her face and smiled. It was not a broken smile. It was not the trembling smile of someone trying not to cry in front of strangers. It was calm, almost tender, like she had just remembered a truth no one else in that room knew yet. That smile reached Andre first, and his confidence flickered so fast he almost caught it. Almost. By 7 that morning, he had stood barefoot in their shower steam and switched her shampoo. He had squeezed hair removal cream into the bottle she used every Wednesday before deep conditioning her curls. He had shaken it carefully. He had wiped the rim. He had even put the bottle back at the exact angle Nia always left it, because sabotage is never as impulsive as cowards pretend. Andre told himself it was only a prank. That was the lie he used to step around the uglier truth. He was tired of hearing people call Nia brilliant, tired of being introduced as her husband, tired of feeling himself shrink every time another black woman in the company pulled Nia aside and whispered, "You make us feel like we can stay." He had not always hated her shine. In the beginning, he loved it. back when her discipline felt like safety and her ambition felt like partnership. But envy is a slow rot. It starts as a bruise and ends as a language, and Andre had been speaking it for years. Nia saw it before anyone else did. She saw it when he stopped asking how her meetings went. She saw it when he laughed too hard after telling people she was married to the job. She saw it when he began treating her success like evidence that he had somehow been robbed, as if her rise had pushed him down instead of showing him what was possible. Still, she had gone to work. She had paid the mortgage. She had packed lunches for her sister's twin boys, Micah and Malik, after school started back. She had visited her Aunt Althea on weekends in that quiet old mansion outside Buckhead, where the curtains stayed drawn and the staff spoke softly because real money never needs to raise its voice. Althea Holloway had died 12 days earlier. The call came to Nia at 5:14 that afternoon, less than 3 hours before the gala. A black car had taken her from the office to the law firm downtown, where 3 attorneys and 1 private banker waited behind a polished table. They told her her aunt's estate had cleared. They told her the trusts, holdings, private equity positions, energy stakes, shipping lanes, real estate blocks, and controlling shares had all passed to their designated heir. They told her that heir was her. $70 billion changes the heir before it changes a life. The room did not spin for Nia. She did not gasp. She did not reach for the glass of water sitting nearby. She just sat very still and listened, because she had been raised by people who understood that numbers like that were not permission to become louder. They were responsibility arriving with paperwork. Her aunt had built Holloway Global with the same discipline Nia's late mother had once carried through every room she entered. Quiet, ruthless, exact. Althea had stayed out of magazines, out of scandals, out of sight. That was her power. And in the final codicil of her will, she had left everything to the niece who insisted on building a career without borrowing the family name. Nia had chosen that life on purpose. She wanted every degree, every raise, every sleepless night to belong to her effort. She knew what executive rooms did to black women with famous last names. They either called it favoritism or asked for constant gratitude. She wanted neither. So she walked into Vale Ridge 12 years earlier as nobody special on paper, and did the work until the building learned her weight. Now the building was about to learn something else. Back in the ballroom, the string quartet kept playing because nobody had told them to stop. The room's cruelty had become procedural. A server passed behind Nia carrying silver trays, unsure whether to keep moving or disappear. On the stage, the company logo glowed blue and gold. Behind the podium, where the promotion announcement was still scheduled to happen in less than a minute. Lenora Price, Vale Ridge's CEO, stood near the stairs to the stage with concern hardening across her face. She was one of those rare black women who had made it to the top by becoming fluent in every dialect of power. Perfect posture, controlled tone, no wasted emotion. She had mentored Nia in pieces, defended her in moments, and also asked her too many times to be patient inside a machine that fed on black women's patience. Lenora saw the hair on the floor. She saw Andre. She saw Camille. She saw Della's satisfaction. And for the first time in years, all her polished instincts failed at once. Nia bent slowly, picked up the folder she had dropped, and walked toward the stage. That was when the whispers turned into shock. People had expected a collapse. They had expected a restroom dash, a shawl over the head, a trembling excuse, a vanishing. But Nia moved with terrible calm, each step measured, each shoulder square. She looked like a woman who had just been stripped of something and refused to surrender anything else. When she passed a mirrored column, she glanced at herself once. Patches, damage, curl pattern dissolved at the edges. Enough gone to expose the sabotage. Enough left to make hiding look desperate. So she did the bravest thing a black woman can do in a room trained to police her image. She stopped hiding. At the base of the stage stood an elderly attendant named Miss Claudine, a black woman who had worked Vale Ridge events so long she remembered when the founder still barked orders in person. Without a word, Claudine pulled a silk pocket square from the inside of her jacket and offered it to Nia. Nia looked at it, then looked at her, then folded it into her own hand without covering her head. It was not concealment. It was blessing. Lenora stepped to the microphone first, but her voice came out thinner than usual. She thanked the guests. She welcomed the board. She began the formal remarks about leadership, transition, and vision. Then she stopped because near the front table, the company's general counsel had just received a message so urgent his face drained. A rumor had hit the room before the speech. Holloway Global, the investment giant that had been quietly negotiating to acquire controlling interest in Vale Ridge, had changed representation at the last minute. Some board members were already panicking. If the deal collapsed tonight, the stock would bleed by morning. Cameras were present. Investors were present. Fear was spreading faster than gossip ever admits. Lenora glanced toward the counsel. He leaned in and whispered something sharp. Her eyes widened. Then, to the confusion of everyone in the room, she stepped away from the microphone and looked directly at Nia. Nia climbed the steps and took the podium. She stood there with damaged hair, bare scalp catching the chandelier light, silk square folded in her palm like a private vow, and when she spoke her voice did not shake. It settled over the room with the kind of authority that does not arrive from title first. It arrives from surviving long enough to know exactly who you are. "I know there are questions in this room," she said, and even the glasses went still. "About the acquisition, about leadership, about whether this company's future is stable tonight." She let the silence tighten. "It is." You could feel the room lean. Nia spoke from memory. No notes, no teleprompter. She laid out the acquisition structure, the debt conversion timetable, the employee retention clauses, the community investment mandate, the protection against branch closures in black neighborhoods that had always been first on the chopping block during so-called efficiencies. She knew the details because she had designed parts of the rescue strategy months earlier and watched men present it as if strategies simply grew out of their cufflinks. Then she delivered the sentence that split the room in half. As of 3:42 this afternoon, Holloway Global is no longer represented in this building by outside counsel, she said. It is represented by me. No one breathed right for a full second. The general counsel stepped forward then, visibly shaken, and confirmed it into the microphone. The estate transfer, the controlling interests, the final signatures, the acquisition authority, all of it. Vale Ridge was no longer promoting Nia Holloway into power. Power had just walked into the building wearing her name. Andre's bourbon glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble. Camille stared at Nia like she had misheard destiny. Della's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, with nothing inside it. Executives who had ignored Nia for years suddenly looked as if they were trying to recalculate 12 years of memory in under 10 seconds. The room did what rooms like that always do when black excellence stops being symbolic and becomes indisputable. It panicked inside and smiled outside. Nia did not look at any of them first. She looked at the row of junior staff near the back, the black women in neat dresses and sensible shoes who had been told to stand all evening because they were not senior enough for the tables. She looked at the 2 young black analysts who had once thanked her for teaching them how to speak in meetings without apologizing first. She looked at Miss Claudine. Then she looked at Andre. He had gone gray around the mouth. There are many ways to ruin a person. Public exposure is one. Financial collapse is another. But nothing quite matches the horror of realizing the woman you tried to humiliate was already carrying a world you could not even imagine. Andre had wanted the room to see Nia as small. Instead, the room saw that he had been standing next to greatness and mistook proximity for equality. Security approached him quietly. Lenora had not moved, but somehow everything around her had. Camille tried to slip toward a side door and was stopped by her own shock. Della called Andre's name once, low and sharp, like maybe motherhood could still protect him from consequence. It could not. Nia finished her speech before anyone touched him. She announced an immediate internal review of executive conduct. She confirmed that no employee would lose a job because of the acquisition. She promised a compensation audit, beginning with the departments where women, especially black women, had been held in leadership pipelines that never seemed to open. Then she closed the folder, lifted her chin, and said, "A company shows its soul by who it humiliates and by who it protects. Starting tonight, we will know the difference." That line landed like judgment. Andre was escorted out past the glass doors he had entered feeling clever. He kept turning back as if there might still be a version of the night he could salvage. There wasn't. Della followed in stunned little steps. Camille stayed frozen until a server kindly moved around her. The room, stripped of its entertainment, had to sit there and face what it had almost enjoyed. But the real wound of the story opened later. After the ballroom emptied, and the press statements were drafted, and the legal team started moving like midnight surgeons, Lenora asked Nia for 10 minutes alone. They met in a quiet conference room overlooking the city, both women exhausted, both still dressed for a celebration that had become a reckoning. The skyline glowed beneath them. Somewhere in the distance, sirens moved like old grief. Lenora did not sit at first. She stood by the window and said, "I failed you long before tonight." Nia said nothing. Silence was not a weakness with her. It was standard. Lenora turned, and the perfection slipped from her face, replaced by something far rarer shame. "Every time they called you intimidating when they meant discipline, I soft it for the board. Every time they criticized your hair, I told you to endure. Every time you were passed over, I called it timing," she admitted, her voice tightening. "I didn't stop the machine. I taught you how to survive inside it." Nia studied her quietly before responding, calm but resolute. "That machine was never built for women like us. But survival isn't leadership, and I'm done surviving in rooms I can own." In that moment, the truth stretched beyond Andre's betrayal to the entire system that demanded perfection from women like Nia just to feel safe. The sabotage was personal, but the roots were structurally woven into policies, perceptions, and quiet biases. Lenra sat down slowly, the weight of realization settling in. Then she chose something rare, real accountability. She offered to forfeit her bonus and equity to fund opportunities for black girls, to testify publicly, and to call for leadership reform. When she finished, Nia met her gaze. "I don't want you gone," she said. "I want you to stay and help fix what you allowed to stand." Before dawn, Vale Ridge moved with urgency and purpose. 2 vice presidents were suspended pending investigation. A full review of pay equity and grooming policies was launched, and Nia Holloway was named incoming chair and CEO, effective immediately. By noon, the truth spread even further. Andre had been arrested, undone not by brilliance, but by arrogance, with evidence he believed was erased leading directly back to him. Nia did not waste a moment grieving him. Instead, she chose herself. In a small Auburn Avenue barbershop, she sat without hesitation and let go of everything that had been damaged, cutting it all away without pity or ceremony, only truth. The next morning she walked into headquarters with her head held high, bald and unshaken, and the building rose in quiet recognition of her strength. As investigations unfolded, a deeper pattern came to light. Black women consistently overlooked, their strengths mislabeled, their voices diminished. This time the system did not bury it, it changed. Lenra acted with structure, not empty words, funding reform and tying leadership to accountability. Months later, the culture held. Women no longer felt the need to shrink. A year after the gala, in the same ballroom, Nia stood transformed, not restored, but redefined, and reminded everyone that being underestimated is never the same as being unchosen, even when the room fails to see.